Well, I'm Susan Bowen, and this is Jonathan, my son. He's 31 and 32 next year, but he was born with cerebral palsy and severe learning difficulties. My husband and I were joint carers. My husband became ill suddenly. Long story short, he came home in September last year for 2 months and he died in November. I was left on my own looking after Jonathan. My son Matthew, brilliant, wonderful support, but it was hard on him, it was hard on me, and we had to have carers. We had a dreadful job getting carers. Social services were not helpful. I couldn't do it without care, help, because that's what they're doing. They're actually taking the place of my husband because we did it together.
The 3 care agencies that were sent to us, all 3 of them, the biggest issue that they had was that they don't start before 7 o'clock in the morning. And eventually social services got to the point of, well, we've tried everything we can, but we can't find anyone, so you need to go and find your own carers. And I was aware that MenCap ran a legal advice line. And I ran MenCap, explained the situation, and then they said, well, we've got someone who can help you fight to get the support that you need. And one of the first things he said is, well, do you actually want to hire your own carers and go through all of that process? And I said to him, well, no, not really. We've got so much else going on, to still dealing with my dad and everything. That's the last thing that we want, but that's what the council have told us to do. And he said, yeah, they can't do that. It is their obligation to provide care and find a way of doing that.
Social care really came into being after the World Wars, and the government recognised that there was a need to look after people within their communities who had come back from fighting in the war or who had been injured at home in the war. So initially it started off as being a power for local authorities to assess people and provide support in the community. And then in the 1970s, that power became a duty. What's happened in the last 10 years because of austerity is really a rowing back on access to social care. Local authorities have experienced a more than 50% cut to their funding. And what that means in real terms, of course, if anybody had their income cut by 50%, they'd struggle to pay the bills, and it's the same for local authorities. So the legal network does 3 things. Firstly, we see care workers as being our boots on the ground. So if we can encourage care workers to pick up the phone and speak to our legal team about an issue, then we know that we can help people. The second thing that we do is provide high volume early legal help. So we help as many people as we can to access legal advice and legal support. The third thing we're doing is, finally, we recognise that we're never going to solve the problems with access to justice and access to social care through the provision of casework alone. So we're capturing data about patterns of unlawful behaviour, and we're using that data to influence systems change.
So the legal network is really important because there's a huge range of problems that can crop up, and some of them will have really simple solutions if you know what the law is, and if you know what the guidance is, and if you know what the judges have said. And marrying up that sort of expertise, which is all there, which lawyers have, and the right person knows the answer, marrying that up with people on the ground who are trying to do their jobs and get the right outcomes for people is so important.
Since 2010, there's been an 84% cut to legal help, which is the type of legal aid that is really used to fund the cases that we work on. Local authorities, unfortunately, can act with impunity unless people can access a lawyer. Without access to justice, the rights might as well not exist.
People don't necessarily know what they're entitled to. So you've got to have support and have access to something or some sort of network that is going to just look after you and make sure that what's happening is in your interests.
We know that every day people are being denied the social care that they have a right to. Through the legal network, we know that together with our teams of lawyers and with the managers working on the front line who have contact with families and individuals who are experiencing unlawful decision making and unlawful delays, we know that we can make a difference together. We know that we can make sure that people's rights are enforced.